All right.
Got it.
So today's artist talk is with Lily McKenzie, writer, teacher, and Paige Tashner, who is a sculptor and maker. And today we're going to start with Lily first. And let's see, wait, hold on, Lily, let me get back here. And all right. So, alrighty. So would you go ahead then and start your presentation?
I will go ahead. And I want to thank Irene and all of the others, Bob and Nancy and all of the others who do so much to keep the Arts of Point Richmond humming along. So we all write, right?
Yeah.
So how do we separate all of that just general writing from writing that is artful? And that's the trick that writers have to deal with. If you're a visual artist, you have other things that you're working with, paint and clay and etc. But as a writer, you're just using the same old material that everyone else in the world is using when they sit down and write. So how do you begin then to make sense or to make art out of that? I took a circuitous route to becoming a published writer, and I'm going to give you sort of the highlights of that route. When I was 13, it was my first attempt at keeping a diary, but it was a secret diary, and I created a language, a special language that I wrote in. I have no idea what it was now, but and I've, you know, at some point that diary got lost, so I'll never know either. But it was the beginning of my writing life. But I was a high school dropout at 14. I left home for the first time at 15, and I've lived on my own since then. At 17, I became a mother and a single parent. I worked as a long distance telephone operator for the Alberta government telephones in Canada. I was a stock girl for the Hudson's Bay Company in Canada. As you can see, I'm from Canada originally. I then became an office girl because I thought maybe I could use the typing skills that I developed in high school to, you know, promote myself. And then eventually I became a secretary, and in 1963, Bechtel Corporation sponsored me into the States. I went to work for them in their main office on Montgomery Street in San Francisco. And then, but I couldn't make enough money doing that because I was supporting my son. I wasn't getting child support from his father. So I became a cocktail waitress at the Fairmont Hotel for 5 long, hardworking years. It was really hard work. I also, for a few days, was the first woman to work at the San Francisco docks as a longshoreman. And I also managed a homeless shelter in Marin County. I founded and started a homeless shelter in Marin County. Also co-created a radio program that aired for 2 years on KTIM in Marin called The Story Shop. So it was stories that my friend Gail and I took and then made scripts from fairy tales and myths and so on. And so it was a children's program. So, but I didn't know that I was a writer until I was 26 years old. And it was strange how I became aware of it, because I was riding home with a co-worker. We were working in San Francisco. We lived in Marin. And started talking. She was asking about my early life and, left home at 15, blah, blah, blah. And she was kind of amazed. And it just came out of my mouth, I want to be a writer someday. And I kind of looked around, who was that speaking? But not long after that, I went into, oh, there's Betsy. Hi, Betsy.
Hi, Lily.
I went into a deep depression. And it was during that time that I started really seriously journaling, and also then started working with a therapist. And during that process, I discovered that I was a writer, and I was, very grateful to recover that writing self. And so I started the creative writing program at San Francisco State as a poet in 1973. But, it's amazing. I've been reading my journals from back, from the 1970s up through today. And every journal, there were so many remarks about, I'll never be a writer. I can't, I'm not writing. I can't make myself write. I'll never publish. I mean, I can't tell you how frequent that turns up in my journals. So it's amazing that you see me here today with all of my books lined up there behind me, and that I actually did make it as a writer. I ended up taking, because I thought writers need to have some depth and some knowledge of the humanities. So I ended up, after I got my BA. Oh, I think we need to mute Betsy. Somebody is getting noise. Can you mute Irene, Betsy, and Nancy's? Yeah.
I don't know how.
Anyway, I had, when I finished my BA in English with an emphasis on creative writing in 1976, I went on later and got a master's in humanities, and I got that in 1984, and then I got another master's in creative writing, and I finished that in 1993. And so I supported myself from teaching, because only 5% of writers are able to support themselves from writing. And the first essay that I ever published actually was published when I was going to San Francisco State, and it was called The Evolution of a Reader. And so now, I've published so many shorter works, including poetry and essays and so on, in about 170 different venues. So fortunately, in 1994, I married my current husband, Michael, and he teaches literature and has specialized in, 20th century American lit, as well as James Joyce. So he's been tremendously supportive of me, and it's really been crucial to have that kind of support. I think probably all artists need it at some level. And but I have to tell you that the visual arts have been as important to me as the writing arts. And even though I don't talk about what I do in the visual arts, I took numerous classes at the College of Marin in drawing, in painting, in sculpting, in collage, and took several different levels of those different disciplines. So I'm in love with the visual arts too, and in some ways I'm even more in love with the visual arts, because it gives me such joy. Writing is a lot of work, and it's, especially if you're trying to write fiction and trying to bring to life a whole world that doesn't exist except in your imagination, it can be really, really difficult. And but for me, the visual arts are just fun, because I don't have any agenda for them. I'm not trying to be a visual artist, and so I can just play with them. And I'm so delighted that I have that outlet. But I've also learned a lot from the work that I've done in the visual arts. As a writer, I think it's really helped my ability to see, because you have to really look if you're drawing, if you're painting, working with color, learning how to mix colors, really beginning to understand as you look in the world around you how multifaceted color is, shapes, forms. So all of those things I think have been a tremendous help to me from all of the art classes I've done. And in at least 2 of my novels, the main characters are artists. And I'll talk about that in a moment. So my process as a writer, I've published 4 novels, as well as numerous stories and poems and so on, while teaching and raising a second family. So when I married Michael in 1994, he came along with a 5-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. My son was already an adult, and I, had already done all of that. But so there I was, starting in 1984 with a family to help raise by teaching, which fortunately wasn't full-time, and then also trying to keep my writing life alive. So what I determined was, if I wrote for an hour a day, and if I did that faithfully, in a year, I would have written 365 pages, right? Or could, and I did. And so so everything that I have published really comes out of all of this time, with especially the books that I've been with Michael. And but novels take a tremendously long time to write, years, and it's so easy to get bogged down too in the middle of one. You don't, at least the way I write, I don't plot in advance, so the plot comes to me as I write. And so I don't know until I've written whatever I've written, who these characters are and how they're going to evolve, and where next. So that's part of the agony of being a writer, is not knowing these things. So I'm going to give you a little picture of, share the screen for a minute with the covers of my books and say a few words about each one. So share screen. So this is the first book that I had published. All this, it's a poetry collection. And actually this painting is mine, Liliana McKenzie. And so this was published by Little Red Tree Publishing. And I was really delighted to have finally, had an actual book come out into the world. And then Fling is the first novel I had published. And I love this color, cover. If you'll notice here, right near the bottom, I don't know if you can see that goddess figure, that's the Venus. You've seen that figure, I'm sure. So I loved how the designer of this book cover was able to incorporate that into the cover. And then it says, a madcap journey of an aging mother and her adult daughter from cold Protestant Canada into the hallucinogenic heart of Mexico's magic. So isn't that the perfect cover for that? And so every story has a story about how it came into being. And the origins of stories, can be mysterious too. Fling came into being because one of the main characters, whose name is Bubbles, is 90 years old. And she is based a lot on my own mother, who was truly a character. And in fact, in our family, my mother's mother left all of her kids, went to Mexico with a lover back in the 1920s, and never came back. She died in Mexico City. And so this book was an attempt to try and capture who was this woman. And so it starts actually with Bubbles getting a letter from the dead letter office in Mexico City saying that her mother's ashes have turned up after 70 years and they can't send them in the mail because of health problems. So Bubbles then talks her daughter, Feather, who's an artist, into going to Mexico with her to get her mother's ashes. And that turns into a really crazy, funny, zany adventure. But actually there's depth to it too. It isn't just on a surface, mother-daughter odyssey in Mexico. We come to learn things about both women that are surprising. So then Free Fall also came into being from something out of my past. I hung out with these women in my late teens, early 20s. We moved to Toronto together from Calgary, and we called ourselves the Big Four. Anyway, I had thought, what would happen if those four women had a reunion now? And so I based the reunion in the what was it? 19 would have been probably about 1995 or 6, and strange things happen again, as happens in my books. Magical realism tends to surface, and these women made interesting discoveries about each other and themselves as a result of this reunion. And then The Ripening, A Canadian Girl Grows Up, was a sequel to Free Fall. The main character in Free Fall, her name is Tilly. And the main character in this novel is Tilly also. And so it's Tilly at a young age. And I had originally wanted to give it the title of Portrait of a Young Artist or something like that, but it's already been used. And so this is so features Tilly until the age of 18, and she goes through some a lot of twists and turns on her way to eventually discovering that she's an artist as well. And then Curva Pelagrosa, I don't know where Curva came from. She's a real mystery to me. She when I was, this is how it started. And I'm sure that, no, I don't think anyone here would know this, that I had read in the, I keep notes for every book I'm writing. I have notes that I'm writing constantly alongside the actual prose for the narrative for the novel. And so here is what I wrote. I was taken with the image of the tornado that swept into Pine Lake, a resort near Red Deer, Alberta, yesterday, and has killed several people, flattening trailers, etc. It isn't the destruction that interests me. It's devastating and unimaginable. It's the image of the tornado, so innocent in itself, flattening a community, bringing with it so much sorrow. The tornado has a magical, mythical quality, reminding me of Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. And it's an image I can imagine using to start a book or a story. It's gripped my imagination. And then it's odd how these things happen, the force they have. Novelists and writers in general are like tornadoes themselves in how they rearrange lives, facts, and places. So that's how Curva Pelagrosa started. And the narrative took off from there. It comes as no surprise then that the Curva Pelagrosa opens with a tornado that sweeps through the fictional town of Weed, Alberta. And Weed has significance in the novel. And drops a purple outhouse into its center. Drowsing and dreaming inside that structure is its owner, Curva Pelagrosa. And she's adventurous and amorous, over 6 feet tall, and she possesses magical powers. And she had arrived in the town of Weed after taking a 20-year journey from southern Mexico to Canada. So the narrative took off from there and gave me this wild ride as I tried to keep up with her. Anyway, I'm wondering if you guys have any questions about writing novels and getting published and etc.
Yeah, and unmute yourself if you have questions.
Wait, I didn't show you my latest. I shouldn't have shown you my latest. This just came out, Dreaming Myself into Old Age. This isn't fiction. This is me speaking. And California Dreaming is my latest poetry collection. And then this is a poetry chapbook that contains poems that I wrote as my husband was going through bladder cancer, etc. Let me stop this share. Okay, here I am.
Okay. Lily, I'm just amazed at your early life. And all the things you went, cocktail waitress, longshoreman. Fantastic.
Yes, yeah. I'm a little amazed too. So no questions. We can move on to the page.
Any comments left? We still have a little time for comments or questions.
I think everybody is shy.
I guess. Okay, well, then if there are no questions, we'll just move on to Paige, and I'm going to and you can go ahead.
Okay. And I imagine too at the end, maybe people will think of something to ask as well. So it's just a few of us. It's not intimidating. Hello. Thanks for having me. It means a lot. I'm a newish member to the Arts of Point Richmond. Been coming up on my 2 years and then participated in the art tag and stuff. So, but this year I've been busy with the project, and I decided to talk about myself from the Burning Man forward. I don't have a formal education. I didn't think I would be an artist, and I still have a hard time calling myself an artist. I've always dabbled in different things, little gifts here and there, but no formal training classes here and there, that kind of thing. So I will take you on where the big art began, like how all this insanity started for me. So it started with an art car. So it's called a mutant vehicle. And this particular one is a single occupancy, me, it's electric. And there's a group of people, including my husband, who was one of the first to make a group of muffins and cupcakes with the idea that the people that came up with the idea wanted a baker's dozen of these out on Burning Man running around together because they thought that would be really fun. And they've since shared like how to bend the metal. There's a bending bar you can borrow, and they help people at maker fairs like learned how to make cupcakes. So there's more and more cupcakes across the country that have been built, and you can have your own icing. You can have anything at the base to make it run. Mine is a mobility cart, and I consider mine the four-wheel drive of the cupcakes because it's quite a bit taller off of the ground. Because the cupcakes are supposed to look like they're just floating, and because the surface is, as more and more people go out there, the surface gets more and more bumpy, and you get caught, and there's a lot of cupcakes that fall over. I've wiped out myself in cupcake farm. So first few years it was devil's food cupcake. It has giant horns. And then I turned it into a space muffin when I made my first large scale installation at Burning Man. And that was for this. And I ended up doing this because I received my first Black Rock City honoraria, which is a grant for Burning Man. You write a proposal, a letter of intent, and if they like it, then you write a proposal, which includes like the budget. So I had to learn really fast how to figure out how to build stuff that I didn't know how to build. So up on the screen, I'm at the Sydney Goldstein, or the North Theater at the time, talking about this experience because it was the very first time I've done anything like this. And I don't remember talking. I was so nervous. And I actually walked off with the pointer and the clicker to advance the slides. But that drawing was the first time I ever had an idea that I saw it in my head and like, this is what I want this thing to look like. And it ended up pretty close to what that was. But I learned how to ask for help. That was one of the big lessons that I learned, ask for help. And figure it out. We were still making it the day before we had to take it to Burning Man. So I learned how to do budgeting and like work under insane timelines. And this is what it ended up looking at. Like you see the night and the day version. Those are my campmates laying on it. The idea was you laid on this spaceship bench thing and you looked up at the fiber optics, and that was the stardust, but it encouraged you to look farther up and look at the stars because there's a lot of stuff out at Burning Man that can distract you, and it's just lots to see. So, but it's also the desert, so it has the beautiful, beautiful sky. So that was the idea behind this project, and it ran on a generator that I have to go out and put gas in it every single day. It was like 2 miles from my camp. And then the next year, I wrote another proposal, and I got the thumbs up from Burning Man again to create the pur pods. And this was another thing I had no idea how to do. I asked questions, I asked people that had made things, and made it happen. And you might recognize the pur pods because they have, I'll go back to that, because there's 2 of them at Point San Pablo Harbor. Those are my sculptures. And then I have some on my heads on my house too. But the original ones had light up eyes because at Burning Man, they want you to be radically lit. So we're trying to figure out all these different ways to add lights. And I really didn't like the eyes, but it was kind of like, let's just make them as crazy as possible. So I made them with a 3D modeling program and we converted another program called Slicer or Slice, and it turns it into an X and Y axis that cuts. I'm getting nervous. CNC cut out plywood to form the cat shape. And then I did paper mache and chicken wire, and the paper mache is made with drywall plaster so that when I weld on it, it didn't catch fire. So that's the process. So I made 3 cats like this the first year. And then I made my first mistake, huge mistake. I was hot gluing the metal to the mold, which worked great because I could just lay them wherever I want. I was hot glue them and I just weld. Well, when you weld and there's glue, industrial glue, it solidifies and it sticks so well that when you pull it off of the cat, it took everything with it.
Oh no.
And it took multiple weekends of volunteers. We tried to freeze the glue off, scrape it, sandblast. Well, we ended up sandblasting it. And if you look at this cat at Point San Pablo Harbor, underneath, you can still see globs of glue that have been powder coated because we couldn't get it off. So what we figured out is we used floral wire and hand tied the ring. That's what we ended up doing. A lot of work, but it worked. And this is pulling the pieces off. It's just like splitting a mold. When you cast something, I figured out where the lines were where the cat would come off. This one we cut it off. We didn't have that figured out, but from here on out, I tape the seams and then we just pop it off. And that's the cat, the first cat put together. That's how big it is. So that was a success. I was pretty happy with how that worked out. And it's really strong. It has no support on the inside. It's all tensular strength. So it's welded in multiple places around the rings on the inside. So it's not going anywhere. And here they are. We're installing them out at Burning Man. You can physically pick these cats up. They're about 400 pounds. And then we installed the lights out there. And this is at dusk with my campmates. This is them at night. Did I skip? Oh, there's the day. And there's the night with them fully lit. And then again, this was 2 generators because they also purred. So we built petting pads and used mini bass shakers inside those rings. So when he touched it, the cats would purr. And so I had to run a generator day and night for the electricity so that they would purr too. So now they're at Point San Pablo Harbor. They're in different positions now, and they will have lights. I just haven't had time to put the lights back in. But they've been to Salt Lake City. Incredible. And Hesperian Triangle in San Leandro. And then I was commissioned to make one for friends in Oakland. You may have seen this one. It's on 55th by MLK. It's elevated now, so you can see it over the fence. And then I was commissioned to make one that went to England too. So that was during the pandemic. That was fun. I got to watch the ship actually go through the Panama Canal while this was happening. So now I make 1/3 scale. So this is basically the same model reduced by, down to 1/3. And I figured out a way I slice the rings now out of pipe and make smaller versions. But it's the same way. I have a mold, I do chicken wire and drywall paper mache. You can see here, different versions. And then I hand tied the ring. So this part takes a long time. But I just listen to podcasts and books on tape and music, and I really get into it. And I can control where the rings go and if I want to put patterns in it. And I really like that part. But the wire, my hands bleed.
Wow.
And this is me welding them. And you can see the blue tape is where the seams are. So that's where I know not to weld. And then I pull the tape off, pull the wire off, and then the pieces come off of the mold. And then I put everything back together. And this is some of the versions, the colors. Let's see if I got that. These were hand painted with automotive paint. It's UV reactive, so every ring was hand painted. I kind of went down this crazy rabbit hole with this and even talked to the company that does the UV reactive colors in the haunted house at Disney.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. And so I've only made 3 of those. It's like, I'm not making any more of those. That was crazy. But I love the effect. And the one, they'll be in Ruth Bancroft Gardens, the Garden of Delight. One of them will be in there coming up at the end of the month, Thanksgiving weekend, I think they have that. And then this will also be in the Garden of Delights. This is also a UV reactive powder coating. So I kind of been exploring the blacklight stuff. So this is a 3rd scale model of the next big project that I started for Burning Man this year. You can see the small cat in the foreground and the big cat behind it. I got another grant for 5 cats. And my project was called Trust because it's cats with their butts in the air. And if you know cats, you know that if they show you, right, Zoom? if they show you their butt, they trust you. And
Ah.
so the idea was to have this ring with these cats with their butts in the air, and they had illuminated and interactive buttholes, and in the middle was a podium that had trust exercises. So because of the sense of humor, people kind of let down their guard, and they actually did the trust exercises. I would go back and I'd see people playing in this ring of cat buttholes. It was great. It was so fun. And so you see, it's the same method. It works out really great. And so I used one mold for all 5 cats. I just didn't have enough time to do different things. It was kind of like we just had to crank them out. Sometimes my shopmates helped me out and would weld till 5 o'clock in the morning. They would just get their Rockstar and their White Claw, and they would just go to town.
Oh.
And they would say, just go home. I'm like, thank you. But this is us in the shop. Welding, one was done, and then just rolling out the form to, I would start hand tying all the rings. I did all the, most of the tying of the rings because it was just faster for me. Because people wanted to lay the rings out so carefully. It's like, nope, get them done. Just like, go, 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 go. We don't have time. Just go, go, go.
Wow.
And then this is testing because these were solar. So in the picture on the left, that cardboard box is actually, it's painted to look like a cardboard box, but one of the flaps houses my solar panel. So this project became a big experiment in doing solar, and I worked with a team. They're called the Renewables for Artists team through Burning Man, called RAT, and they helped me figure out my power needs, how much solar, how many panels, batteries, all that kind of stuff. So this was the test. So I ran it for 3 days after everything was built, to make sure that it would work before I brought it out there. So because it's really hard to fix stuff once you're out there. And then this is them arriving.
Oh.
And us in preparation. So like they're coming off, I got a 48-foot flatbed. So part of the grant pays for transportation. It's actually most of my grant goes to transportation. And then we, dug power and everything and got the cats all set up. And this is them during the daytime and the nighttime.
Oh, they're great.
It turned out, I was pretty happy with how that turned out. I think that is the last
Wow.
image there. And so they're actually, not only are two of my small sculptures going into the Ruth Bancroft Garden of Delights, I'm also 2 of those big cats you just saw are going to be on either side of their gate entry. So those are going to go pretty soon. I have to get them ready. We're trying to weatherproof the buttholes for the duration. And then the other 3 cats are going to go to Portland, Oregon, my hometown, and be installed in the South Park blocks in front of the Portland Art Museum. So we're working out the details for that. So I'm getting those ready, which means, electronics, and with Portland, downtown Portland's a little drug heavy. So we have to figure out how to, bulletproof the cats. So that's where I'm at. And I just submitted a letter of intent for the next project. So we'll see how that goes.
So are you able to get enough in the grants to support you fully? Like,
Nope.
Oh, oh dear.
No. I've lucked out where the cat in Bristol is a lease. So I get some passive income once a year from that. The sculptures sell. When the sculptures sell, that's kind of like the most that I get. Anytime I lease the cats, that's just pure income. But everything else, I'm still really struggling. And so I make like jewelry and things like that, wherever I can. But, I have a husband that supports me as well. I keep promising, I'm like, this is the year. I'm going to pay for our new roof. I know I can do it.
So it sounds as if you've been teaching yourself as you go.
Yeah. Everything that I present, I have an idea and then I write about it. And then if I get the thumbs up to write the proposal, then I go online and learn a lot about whatever methods that I'm trying to figure out how to do. And then I reach out to friends who have built something kind of like my idea. And I'm like, what would you do? How much does it cost? What, how do I plan this? And then I go from there. So I have had to learn a whole lot. But it's kind of cool because it's like, let's just see if I can do it.
It's extraordinary.
I feel very lucky. It's a lot because with the grant, it's only 60% of what you ask for.
Oh dear.
And so then you have to fundraise the rest of it. And it is, and that's why you're learning and building something in a very short time, because they are really slow about getting you your first payment. And so I didn't start to build till probably the end of April, and the cats needed to be ready the first week of August. So we
Oh,
built 5 cat sculptures, the structure, all the solar, everything, got it on a truck and got it out there in a really short amount of time. So,
Wow,
yeah. And I'm doing it again.
that's impressive.
Insane. I was like, why don't I pick out like something that just requires small amounts, like, not huge, so much space of storage. So I'm hoping, I'm sorry.
I'm curious about the cupcakes. The first picture you showed where you were sitting inside, there was a top. Did
Yeah.
that top come down?
Yes. So it pulls down over the top and there's a hole. My head comes out the top.
Ah,
So my head pops out of the frosting.
oh,
And so
that,
for the cupcake, during the day, I had this really big black hat with like netting, like you make for tutus, and I made it so it looked like I had flames coming out like the back and had little horns. And then at night, I would put red lights in my hair so it kind of stand out.
how great. Wow.
Those sculptures take a lot of room. Where do they get built?
Well, right now the current, so the Q hut that you saw where I was doing all the light testing, we call that the butt hut because that's where I would tie all the rings together. And then there's a little alleyway next to it. We call that, we've moved the cats there, so they're out of the way. We call that cat butt alley. And so I've been given permission just because it was kind of like a extra storage space. And so I kind of cleaned it out and we threw out the old pallets and all that kind of stuff. And we just slid the cats back there. And that's where they're stored right now. And all 5 of them are going to be gone soon. And at least I will have 3 months of where I don't have to even think about any of that. So, but it's tough. I've been lucky, like Point San Pablo Harbor, initially it was a lease. And then they liked them so much and they really didn't have the money for a lease anymore. But I said, hey, can I just keep them here? So I have a free place to store them and they're really close to my house and people love them. So that worked out great. So, and I donated one of them to the American Museum of the House Cat in North Carolina. So it's in I think it's in downtown Silva now.
Wow.
So I can see the commercial possibilities. I mean, I'm sure you're thinking about that too.
I have to, because it's like, I actually, I took the cats, the recent ones, to right after Burning Man. I put them back on the truck and they went to the Reno Tahoe International Art Show and were displayed there. And they got a little nibble from somebody that wanted to buy all of them for their property in Joshua Tree. And I know from experience, it's like, yeah, get excited, but it's like people with money get excited about stuff, and a lot of times it doesn't happen. So it didn't happen, but I, through that and through a bunch of questions that I had on Facebook, I actually possibly have an agent that can help me with the contracts and things like that. And he's a fan of my work.
Oh, great.
and we were Facebook friends, and he just showed me what he works on, and he's like, people really love cats around the world. Maybe we should think about getting your cats, like maybe you can travel, and I'm like, I like that idea. So the 3 cats that are going to Portland are going to be the topics of our conversation soon, as far as getting them sold.
Hmm.
I think that's great.
Yeah, I hope so. Because I know I can't keep doing this in a deficit for like, this is the year I have to do something, has to happen this year or this coming year.
Yeah. Mm.
Well, there
Or I have to be a cocktail waitress, which I've done. I have done that. It is, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I hope you don't have to do it again.
Did you ever imagine it would be so complex and such a major learning experience?
Nope. This is just like, everything has been, well, let's just see what happens. And then it is a scramble to see how to make it happen.
Mm.
So luckily with the cats this year, I'd already figured out how to build them in
Right.
2019. And once Burning Man actually wrote to me and said, we would like you to build 5 of them. You can say no, but we'd like you to build 5 of them. So I changed my plan immediately. It's like, I know how to build them this way. And I already had the model scanned. I actually have the toy behind me. It was a 2-inch cat toy that we 3D scanned and blew up to make that big cat. So I already knew how to make them a certain way. And then I'm like, oh, maybe all the tails can be different. And I'm like, nope, go. So I used that experience, and I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
What you're describing, Paige, is really imagistic of what I think writers go through, but you don't see it. People don't see it. I mean, you were able to demonstrate. We saw what you went through in order to finally get this, the cats and the other things that you made. But that's a visualization of what writers are doing internally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I can't even imagine. Well, so the next project has more of a lore to it. And so I've been trying to wrap my head around inventing names of things and creating a myth that's based on facts.
Mhm.
So it makes it interesting for people to learn about. What I'm trying to get them turned on to was basically saving the kelp forests and how to do that. But I'm trying to make it into like a mythology thing. The sculpture is going to be that, and interactive, and hopefully get people fired up about doing small things that can make a huge difference.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to wrap my brain around that. But I just submitted the LOI, and I'm like, I'm not doing anything until they give me a thumbs up. If they don't give me a thumbs up, I probably won't go to Burning Man this year, because Mama needs a break.
Yeah.
Well, really, I'm really impressed with,
As am I. That's incredible.
really impressed. I mean, I want one of those purr things. Just one little purr thing, and
Yeah.
so it'll be solar lit. It'll be in my study. It'll really inspire me. I just think it's a terrific idea.
Well, the speakers are actually what people put in their chairs for gamers.
Ah,
And we have to replace them every once in a while, because they weren't made for outdoors. I mean, we weatherproof them as much as possible, and they're not very expensive. So we have to like go out every once in a while, like take them apart and put new ones in. So the cats that are out at Point San Pablo Harbor will have their lights and their purring restored. It has just been, I haven't really stopped moving since April of last year. So I'm hoping things will chill out a little bit, and I can go out and repair the cats out there and make them look nice,
Mhm.
make them work again.
Cool.
well, I look forward to going out and seeing them.
Oh yeah, I love that they're there, and that Rob's really cool, because they let me, if they get a lease, they let me take them away, put them wherever, and then I get to bring them back. So that's a pretty sweet setup.
It's great. Wow.
So Paige, I want to know where you learned to do the ironwork?
That has been kind of an ongoing thing. I had one friend just kind of show me, and I just like welded a bunch of stuff together horribly. And then I got into a program in Portland because they were trying to recruit women and people of color to go through a welding program for Gunderson Steel. So this is like a for real. Yeah. And I started learning with the giant arc welders, like the big cables, and just practice, learning, how to, do it. But I realized that I couldn't see very close. And my shoulder couldn't handle the weight of the cable. And I lost all the feeling in my arm and I couldn't finish the program. And it was so disappointing. But then someone said, hey, try this, then I tried a smaller MIG welder. I'm like, oh my God, I can do this without it tearing my arm apart. And just I've been taking like little classes like at the Crucible or through Moxie, the Department of Spontaneous Combustion, just like a little bit. And then with the cats, those are all the same welds over and over and over and over and over. And so I'm still not that great, but the welds aren't pretty, but they're strong. I can see, I can see the rainbow. You can see the heat penetration. So I know like my welds are strong. They're just not pretty. So that's kind of my goal, is to get better and make something that, you don't have to spend 8 hours grinding to make it look nice. There's a lot of grinding involved with these cats because, people sit on them and climb them.
Wow.
And, you got to get all the sharp stuff out.
And the other thing, do you have any helpers? Or do you do all of this by yourself?
No, this year, 2 of my shopmates who weren't shopmates yet, I didn't even know they were going to be moving into my shop, reached out because we work on another different project together. And they said, we want to work on yours. I'm like, okay. And they recruited another guy, and then I put out volunteer forms, and we recruited another person. And so I had a lot of people that had some welding skills. They didn't have to be good.
Yeah.
So we had a handful of people that could weld, and then we had a handful of people that like, I don't want to weld. I'm like, great. Do you want to do chicken wire and paper mache? Like, yes. And so we'd have volunteer days. And we just go to town and get as much, like we had days where we painted lights and we did grinding. I have people that is like, I can't weld, but I can grind. I love to grind. I'm like, okay. So I would just like set them up and just like, we'd roll the cat outside and just let them grind like all day.
Right.
So I had a lot of help. And part of the budget too went to feeding everybody. So that, we would like, I would bring pizza and we would order burgers, and I'd always have snacks. I was joking about my bus was the snack wagon because I would just show up with boxes of snacks just to keep people going, drinks and things like that. So yeah, a lot of help. But I did all the fundraising alone. We did have a party at the shop, which was there's some of you on here that came, and that was so helpful. And that was their shopmate did that for me. She's like, I'm gonna throw you a party. I'm like, okay, thank you. I didn't have time, so thank you.
That's great. Well, are there any more questions or comments? It's a little after 5.
Does your husband work on these projects with you?
He works, so the 2 shopmates are working on a different project. My husband Will also works on that project. It is Empire of Dirt. They make large art cars. You may have seen them out at the Autumn Light Festival. This year they've been working on this giant spaceship since 2014, and they finally finished it. My husband does the lighting, and then Amber and JR, my shopmates, have worked on it, and they help. So one of the support things is they make and sell shade, and so they do that. So he's part of that project, but helped me toward the end because I ran out of time to do the lighting. As far as like, I already bought all the wire and the batteries and the solar panels, but he helped put the system together because I ran out of time. So and That was our biggest fight, was that.
Oh,
Too much work.
It's a lot of work. It's a ridiculous amount of work for very little money. It's so silly. It's so silly.
You're a true artist. A starving artist, not quite.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you all. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Paige.
Yeah.
Fantastic,
Thank you, Lily.
yeah.
fantastic stories. Thank you all. Let's give them a big hand.
Yeah,
Thank you,
absolutely.
guys.
Thank you.
Hey, there she is. Okay,
Great.
well, that's it. And I just want to say this is the last artist talk for this year. And my year in this position is over. So I'm hoping that somebody else will take over and maybe continue the artist talks.
Great
Thank
talk.
you,
Thank you,
Irene.
Irene.
Okay, goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Good luck to Lily. Good luck to Paige. Bye-bye.
Bye.